Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. Man, family. Thank you for being with me again. If you didn't already know, this is just one of the tracks off of my album, PLR New Paradigm. The name of this track is Flexible. Come on in, folks. Come on in. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again, folks. Excuse me, folks. My phone, the AI has gotten a little mad at me from time to time, but we're gonna work with it. And we'll work things out. Right now, we're gonna get you right on back to flexibles. Everybody keep piling on in. That's what we're gonna do. Come on in with me, family. This is the track called Flexible off of my album, PLR New Paradigm. Welcome, come on in. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. That's right. Come on in. Welcome. Thank you. Let's listen to the track as we come on in. Again, always feel free to announce yourself in the chat so I can formally welcome you to the conversation. In the mini skirt, you like the other skirt with the righteous queen. She living right mind tight, keep it sexy. I be the righteous dude with a good heart. Show equality, respect you from the very start. Let's have a good time. See, that's a peak game. Come on in, folks. Go smell a wildfly, make a deep change, mentally elevate, seek balance and maintain. The work schedule got you locked into it a little longer. Gotta chill a little sometimes. The pressure's I hope y'all can hear that pretty good. You know. But get your mind right and chill. Sky's bright with the sunlight plaster. And haven't we had plenty of beautiful sunny days? Man. I love it. I was waiting on the spring and the summer. Nothing like it. Literally watch the earth just spring to life, right? Bursting forward with vibrance. Straight from God. Welcome. Thank you. Come on in. Feel free to announce yourselves in the chat. Let me welcome you formally to the conversation. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Marv B in the house. Thank you, sister. We know we're going to have a wonderful conversation anytime Marv B comes to give us just a sampling, right, of her light and wisdom. We appreciate that all the time. Thank you. Welcome. The song about to go off. We're about to begin. Open this up. Hey. We let it ride out a little bit on this track. Thank you, sister. Appreciate that. We have really developed a beautiful form. I personally feel like, right? But we can get together once a week, talk to one another, bounce our ideas back and forth off of one another, shed light on subjects that impact all of our lives, right? And have intelligent conversation in the process of doing so. So I thank you all again. As my song ends here, that was Flexible off the album PLR New Paradigm by Big King Sadiq. Thank you. All right. So I think we have a very, very interesting subject matter that, as promised, as per Mavi's suggestion, we're going forward now with subject matter that is from the treasure trove of information that we see in the community section of my channel, right? Just because that information doesn't get as more readily highlighted, right, as what we might have in videos and whatnot. And it's something that you all have the opportunity, if you like. Hold on one moment. I didn't have an opportunity to email you a topic from the community section, but I did go through and select something for future discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Just the fact that you going in there looking and seeing that stuff, right? It actually gives me, family, another sort of journalistic outlet within the channel, right? So that is very helpful anytime you go in the community section and look and are able to find something that is a tantalizing subject, very interesting, that you can research, that you can offer up as a suggestion for us to build in the forum, right? Which was Malvi's idea, again, an excellent one. And I want to roll with that. Also, I do want to make note that this season, the successful season, right, is going to go up likely to 21 episodes, right? Which we are on episode 19 now, I believe. And then there's just going to be a brief sort of hiatus. I don't know if I want to use the word hiatus or whatever you call it. I don't know exactly how long, but it won't be very long. And we're going to then restart with season 2. Right after that, with some very needed and welcome improvements that I think is really going to make the podcast that much better, and just some really helpful improvements. I think they're going to prove to be overall. So we're going to roll those out in season 2. But for the remainder of season 1, we will be on this format, right? Okay, so thank you. So let's do this, Mavi. With this subject that you have for future discussion, let's just make that next week's subject, and you can roll it out to us like at the end of today. You know what I'm saying? Just that way, everybody can go in the community section themselves and look at it, and then we can go back next week and have a powerful discussion about it. All right. But today I'm going to try to follow suit from last week and be as quick as I can to open this up, fully to us conversing through the chat. Okay, thank you, sis. And so I'm gonna be real quick with this, but I think this is a very powerful and relevant, right? A currently relevant issue. It's more than an issue, actually. So what we're going to be talking about today, and I didn't put it in the subject matter yet. I'm going to go back and revise that after we complete the podcast. Excuse me, but Today's subject is the erosion of public trust in the quote unquote authorities or powers to be, that be, right? As we tend to call them. And of course, we're talking about the centralized power structure, our government, and all of its outreaching um, tentacles, so to speak, right? We all know and have enough um, clear eyed vision to be able to see the impact or control that the government is able to have in what we call mainstream legacy media, or the media outlets that are controlled by centralized corporate force. We believe the company to be BlackRock, but that's a whole nother conversation. Um, and what has happened now, as we've seen, again, news outlets, um, popular celebrities, all following suit and assuming the same narrative, right? Um, and unfortunately, these narratives, well, unfortunately for them, these narratives are rapidly more and more proving to not have been 100% accurate in some cases, and in other cases, outright deception, right? So, let alone a lot of the hypocrisy that has been uncovered in the process of that. And this is leading to the rapid erosion of public trust in the system. Now, in some ways, for individuals such as myself, that could be perceived as a very good thing. And one that I told you was on the way. Now, what do I mean by it's a good thing? Let me phrase that. Let me put that in the proper context. I've stated that paradigm shift is here, and that the way the world used to operate, inclusive of governmental structures, right, is now shifting and changing. And the impact that the socially economic elite have had on our lives through the control systems that they have implemented and regimented throughout all of the institutions that touch and affect our everyday lives is now shifting, right, back to the term that is so ugly to them, power to the people, right? This is actually happening, folks. There is so much in the world going on that you're not privy to via legacy mainstream media, right? Um, there is really a lot going on internationally that would signify and does signify and is showing in action that the way things used to work are not going to fly anymore. And that's the reality of it. And every time that mainstream legacy media and its tentacles, Brother Sean, welcome to the conversation. Um, every time that legacy mainstream media rears its head in the same old toning of the company line, and not really showing any integrity, it further erodes trust in the public. Why? Because the media is often the go-between governmental structure and the public, right? So as trust erodes in them, it also erodes in the government or governmental structure whose message it is towing, right? So this is what's happening right now. To highlight that, I don't know if you all are aware, but in reference to the same vaccines that in some ways are still being mandated, right? Because there's still employers that are mandating that their employees have the vaccine, right? So it has been uncovered, if you don't know, a great deal of misleading information that was given to the public. And again, many would say downright deception, or at least a severe lack of forthcoming with information that could potentially have been paramount and impactful to the decision-making process of a lot of people. That was withheld from you, right? Like the fact that during their limited testing process held by these major pharmaceutical companies who were pushing out these vaccines, that they never actually got to a point where they could, through proper pharmaceutical trials, prove that the vaccine actually did stop transmission. But that wasn't given to you. In fact, by your media, by many of your celebrities, right? Little spokespersons that they became all of a sudden, they were telling you the exact opposite. You got to go get this because you will stop the transmission dead in its tracks, right? They were saying that. And that was not factual, right? Do you know that Pfizer, one of the biggest producers of these vaccines, is being sued, right? Not only by, I think, up to 5 states now, right? Have some sort of legal proceedings in progress. I believe that's the number of states here in the U.S. And also, I will add that there is at least one other pharmaceutical company abroad, I believe in the UK, suing or having some legal proceedings where they're seeking damages against Pfizer for what they purchased off of them under apparently less than forthcoming information, like I'm stating to you now. So, but remember, all of this wasn't just being offered to you politely as an option. It was literally being just about rammed down your throat, right? To the way that public perception was molded. I mean, I had myself, little old lady just about cussed me out in public for not having on a mask or for not supporting vaccine when I believe I was having an open conversation with somebody and she just overheard and came in just about cussed me out and told me, where's my mask, right? And went into it. And by the way, folks, you know that we did find out that many of those protocols, right, were not only unnecessary, not only less than helpful, but in some ways potentially harmful. But that was forced on you, right? And all of this, again, coming from your governmental structure that you just train to trust. So not you guys, but so many people trained to trust, right? Blindly, with a certain degree of loyalty, or you're not a patriot. You should be frowned upon, right? Your children's health at risk. They wanted to force folks, think about the impact of this. And all the while, they're making tons of money, not just the pharmaceutical companies who recorded record profits, if you didn't know that, but also your politicians who were standing up saying it was the right and American thing to do. right? We're becoming the new wave of fresh new multimillionaires off of the jab. Did you know that? Hmm? And you got hit in the pocket. You got hit in the pocket. Small businesses often were crushed, right? People who work for small businesses losing their jobs. All sorts of things we had happen that never even had to happen. So, yeah, public trust is eroding in folks who have told you lies. Now, when you couple that, come on now, when you couple that with what you were openly shown on the Georgia Guidestones before they were blown up, when you couple that with the vision of the depopulationists, right? Like Mr. G and them, right? When you couple that with that vision of a massive culling on the planet, right? Then you throw in the visions, the visualizations, remember the nurse crying her eyes out in the New York hospital about how they're just killing people, right? You throw all this stuff in the pot and get to stirring it up. Yeah, there's erosion of public trust. There's a little bit more than that. Yeah. Yeah. We need to be looking into all of this, and we need to not be blindly, in my humble opinion, not be blindly trusting any of this stuff. Which, by the way, I wasn't. And, I mean, listen, I knew, and many of us know the science of it, right? Everything in existence vibrates at its own vibrational frequency. Facts. If you are not in alignment, so what I'm saying is, before I go to this next part, that includes diseases, any ailment, okay? If you are not in alignment, in vibrational frequency, if at least within that range that disease exists in, you are not going to have it. That's my personal opinion and my living experience. And if you know anything about vibrational frequency resonance, tell me how those two things are going to resonate, how you're going to have coexistence if they're not resonating at least somewhere in a plausible frequency range. Just explain it, enlighten me. I open up the floor to any scientist, physicist, or anywhere in existence. Explain to me how that's going to happen. So I knew I wasn't going to contract any of that stuff, and I didn't. But then again, I haven't been sick in years now, right? I haven't been sick really beyond what your body should do, because you do know, folks, that as the seasons change, there is a regulatory adjustment that your body goes through, right? Where all your systems do adjust to the season, like your mucus levels and everything. That should happen. But beyond that, all this other stuff, yeah, not right here. In over 7 years, just like I haven't had a bad day in over 7 years. Just like they prescribed me medication for 5 major ailments, some of which they told me I'd have to take for the rest of my life. Listen to what Big Pharma do through the AMA and the medical professionals. Some of which they told me I'd have to take for the rest of my life. I didn't take not one day and defeated all of that. All right. Enough about me. Enough is said about how. So we see that if, just to put it all together real quick, folks, we see that if we have lack of forthcoming of vital information, all right, coupled with, in some instances, outright deception, right, coupled with profiteering at the highest levels, okay, coupled with casualties, human lives, right, attributed with all of this, and all of it thrown under the auspices or the umbrella of a depopulationist movement of socially economic elites who told you what they wanted to do. Now I'm gonna rest my case and open it up, and I want to know whether or not you all recognize an erosion in the public's trust in the authorities or powers that be, and whether it's warranted, right? And whether it should be even more than just a lack of or an erosion in trust, or where you stand on it. Please, folks, I'm gonna jump in the chat and try to catch up, and then we're gonna keep it rolling for there, because this is an important conversation that impacts all of our lives, right? So let's be willing to discuss this, get to the point where we can figure out some actionary steps to start to take, right? And let's get in it. We're doing so, first of all, just by having these discussions. So I'm gonna jump back in. Okay, so Brother Sean came in. One love, family, true indeed. One love, Brother Sean. Did we all see the joke debate the other day? We could have another conversation about that debate. True indeed, though. The whole thing is a joke, right? It was all death, mayhem, and mystery until capitalism was like, we have solutions, right? Isn't that so? Marvy just laid it out right there, and it alludes to also what Brother Sean was saying. That's their modus operandi. They build you up, pump. They get the fear pump, right? And they get busy on that joint, right? They get to working on the fear pump, and they pump you up real good, and then they come along with the solutions that they already have ready to roll out to you. And when you're good and scared, you just go ahead and sign, throw your rights away in the whole nine, right? But anyway, trying to catch back up here. Marvy came in and says, Sean, it's just so apparent, true indeed. And then Sean says, Marvy, supreme abundance, reflection as we take the land back from the imposters. True indeed, imposters, big word. And also relevant, you all may have seen the video I recently posted titled The Biggest Lie Told About America, right? Because truly, in my opinion, right, and I'm sure Brother Sean would agree with this, the biggest lie is for folks, if you don't realize by now, not all quote unquote Black people here in America are descendants of slaves who came over from Africa. That's a small percentage of the population, right? Not to say anything disparaging one way or the other. I'm just telling you demographics. The majority of us are the descendants of the original inhabitants of these lands, North and South America. Facts. Just saying. So the biggest lie is to lie that we that and tell us go back to Africa, right? Wasn't that something? and then try to act like the land that they took from these other cats, which I don't got nothing bad to say about them, but they wasn't us and they wasn't here first, right? And then put them on reservations turned them into alcoholics, and it's been well spoken about how alcoholism has run rampant through the reservations. But anyway, bottom line is the whole lie is that while they did all that and wrote this history books up the way they did, they was lying big time, because that was our land. This is our land, right? So you talking about the y'all was talking about reparations. That's why reparations never ever was going to be something that was plausible, because do you know what we're really owed? All right, I'm getting a little off subject. Okay, Kepley Lee, Word Life. Keep up the great work, Sadiq. Thank you so much. I love you and I appreciate that. Thank you for chiming in. Malvi, the people have a serious case of amnesia if they trust these corporations. Show you right, especially the US government, but we really do suffer from amnesia. Cause with, and she goes, at Sean, power to that, and let's take the truth back while we're at it. Yeah, yes, indeed. Y'all heard my proclamation that I made about the Vatican and the Smithsonian Institute need to come up off that info ASAP. When I said it, I forget the date. I'd stated 90 days. I put it out there. So it is. It is so. Right? No more rap. Okay. Mavi comes back and says, beyond the lack of trust I have for these cats, LOL, the technological frontier is a further erosion of reality, in that people will not be able to determine what is real. Dig that. The diaspora began connected in Pangea. So, where haven't the original people been on this earth? Exactly. That's why I coined the term geo-indigenous. Geo being the world, indigenous being the original inhabitants of those lands. And most certainly that is us, the geo-indigenous. And I'm sticking by it. Word life. Okay. So we got just about caught up here. Please come back in, anybody else who's here. And listen, you also remember and checked out the video and remember from the last joint that, or maybe y'all might not have checked it out. I don't know. But I was vibing about melanin, right? And how melanin, whatever we want to wrap the circumstances up in a bow, is indeed, right, factual that we have a very much more diverse gene pool, particularly in the North American hemisphere, right? And with that, we need to understand that there is an actual melanin redistribution that's happening, right? And with that, there's a whole set of circumstances and consequences associated with redistribution of melanin. Folks, melanin, if you don't know, is one of the most powerful and important molecules known to man, bar none, known to man, right? Melanin is a superconductor of light, of sound, of several different forms of energy, of consciousness. Huh? Melanin is incredibly powerful and shows up in incredibly diverse and impactful and powerful ways. Sean comes back and says, I have one question. When Columbus was supposed to have discovered America, when he landed, who did he meet? I give you a hint. I give you a hint. He's saying his name ain't Reggie Hammond. Wow. Yeah, who did he meet? Right? Um, man, we need to. There's certain things that have already gotten to be so widely and commonly known that it starts to look a little silly when individuals or groups might be ignorant to something that should be commonly known, right? And that's, the whole Columbus thing falls into that category for sure. So we're just talking about a farce that just has no legs, right? And the whole subject of our presence here in these lands and how to tie in a whole nother subject, but also relevant to the conversation when we start to talk again about diversification of the gene pool. We have to talk about the genetic impacts of all this, right? Of the things that happen, so to speak, right? In all of these discovery efforts. Sean comes back and says, Mavi, I agree about the diaspora. They're not telling the truth either. True that. Well, excuse me, folks, the lies told are many. And the depth of how deep the rabbit hole really goes is known by few, right? That's the facts of it. And so we can fill in the blanks, and we could and should connect the dots more and more as we uncover more and more information, right? Through free thinking research, right? There's no substitution for doing the work. I say all of the time, never just go and blindly take what I'm saying as anything, to just accept as fact and rule of thumb. Me or anyone, always do the free thinking research to know for yourself. There is no greater power, no greater reassurance, confidence, or upliftment, no greater empowerment than to know for yourself, right? And not rely on others solely for your information. Now, ultimately, we do, right? That's what human beings do. We pass information back and forth, and that's how we transmit information to one back and forth to one another. But there are schools of thought and schools of history, certainly, that we don't have to just blindly accept, right? We have information, we know better at this point that we don't have to proceed like blind animals led blindly in the dark, so to speak, or whatever phrase you want to put on it. All right. So anybody else want to say something specifically about that? Right. I think it is an incredibly alarming thing that we have our powers that be proven to be, again, less than forthcoming with vital information, and in some instances, downright deceitful. But this is your governmental structure. These are the peoples who you put up in high social status, and this is this person who's this celebrity in this talk show, and she says this going along, towing the company line, whatever. And we're supposed to swallow all that and just believe it and just digest it as how we should go forward to behave. When in reality, again, many instances we are being lied to and misled, right? And that's something that's got to be dealt with. We got to be real with ourselves and real about where we're at in this struggle to maintain a clear-eyed view of exactly where we sit in the world and how we can empower ourselves to move forward, right? I always think in terms of empowerment, right? I never think in victim terms or in terms of victimization. So, yeah, man, we got to move forward with free thinking solutions and not allow ourselves to be convoluted in our opportunities that we do and should have to move forward, right? Marv comes back and it says, I copied and pasted the link, but for the community topic, for the community topic, but our site. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing that, Marv. Truly, I appreciate that, sister. Man, so again, this is powerful, folks. We're not talking about something that is just like, of subtle importance. We're talking about a vaccine being, something where your skin is pierced with a needle, right? And something injected into your body, into the bodies of your children, right? On the recommendation of public officials, of elected officials, of governmental employees, of health officials, right? Of people who are all telling you that this is something that you needed to do, that was the right thing for you to do, right? You were told that over and over again. And somehow we find ourselves at a place where all of that was inaccurate. And we're supposed to still trust the same governmental structure. We're still supposed to trust the same talking heads that flood the media circuits. We're still supposed to trust folks who told us to blindly follow. We're sovereign and far too intelligent and sophisticated for that, I think, right? Holler back at me, folks. Let me know if I'm shot out there or what. Do you feel the same way I do, right? I jump back in and say, Mavi says, Adama Alaji, naked currency. Naked currency, I believe, by Adama Alaji at Black Magic 363. It'd be some powerful stuff on Black Magic 363. Word Life, Mars V, thank you for making us aware of that. Brother Sean comes back in and says, our ancestors already had a civilization built as well as our own governmental system that started with Atlantis. Yes, there were several, should I say, not many, but there were several Atlantean civilizations and even some pre-Atlantean civilizations. This is true. And in many instances, it is true that you're also talking about melanated individuals, right? Once again, deep ancestry of the geo-indigenous. Now, a lot of that information, see, this is what to me, honestly, it ticks me off a bit and gets me so frustrated, because we shouldn't be able to get to this point where we're just stutter stopped and just stonewalled, right, by the fact that we know there's big pieces of the puzzle that are missing because of information warehoused, sequestered, kept away from the public by the Vatican and also the Smithsonian Institute and similar organizations worldwide. I'm not accepting of this. You feel me? This is not okay. It's not their information, property, or artifacts to hoard in the first place. Much of it they shouldn't even have, right? But yet, this is stuff that could be bringing serious light to the rest of the world, and we're left with the puzzle pieces out of place because they're holding the answers. And we're supposed to just go along with that? The whole world, though? The whole world, though, just got to bow down to these cats. Come on, man. I'm going to jump back in the chat. Sean Johnson, our ancestors, okay, I did read that. Our ancestors already had a civilization built as well as a government. That's just started with Atlantis. Word Life. And, we got some Lemurian civilizations in there as well, folks. All right. Let me make sure I'm at the right spot. Sean says, it is our responsibility and our task as one of our past on this planet to self-educate and rebirth ourselves in truth so we can move forward to unity to better our community. One love. Word life. Well said, brother. Thank you. Thank you. True indeed. One love on that all day long. Truth. Marv comes back and says, I don't understand how anyone can justify relinquishing their trust or agency to someone who has actively been attempting to assassinate, malign, imprison, and torture you. That's a big for me too. Because I don't know how either. Right? Real talk. How do you go to someone who's, it's like you're literally walking to somebody who's drawn down on you, ready to fire, but you're just blindly going to keep walking to the barrel of that gun. We can't be that ignorant, that blind to just like literally walk ourselves into the fire. Come on, folks. Yeah. And we're not, but it gets frustrating and feels that way to many of us, who have, let's just say, been very vested in giving everything we can in one way or another to keep this struggle going, right? And when I say this struggle, not the struggle, matter of fact, to keep this evolution progressing forward, right? And sometimes just as a sort of a nature type of thing, I would suppose, we definitely get very frustrated with the whole nature of the, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, or however it goes. That can be frustrating to us, right? That ebb and flow. But it is natural. It is a, it is a pattern that is akin to wave fluctuation, right? And we know that we are all in particle and wave form at the same time. So certainly that is appropriate, right? All right, folks. But yeah, think about that, because there's no part of what she said there that's not accurate. I mean, literally, and prisoners there. I was going to say, literally, been attempting to assassinate, malign, imprison, and torture you, right? To indoctrinate so many of us to throw away the lives of our children, right? And folks, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody. I remember years and years ago, I was one of those individuals who was like being forceful to the woman about, hey, you need to get an abortion, right? Listen, this is how we have been indoctrinated layer upon layer upon layer upon layer in the society. And I don't even want to open that discussion up about abortion. But my point is that this is a society that is really so sick that it's appropriate that it die off, so that this new society that is representative of the new paradigm, which is already here and formulating and that we're cementing, that is representative of that. And it certainly is indicative of a paradigm of peace, love, respect. Right. Okay, so, and then Marvy says, and more importantly, align in my capacity, the empire, right? The empire isn't interested in my empowerment. That's a conflict. Certainly, they don't want us to be empowered in any way. In fact, folks, the Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, folks, you talking about a piece of work. this UN movement's not the word. This UN agenda, right? It is certainly an agenda. They are really rooted deep into populationism. And they are really invested in all sorts of control systems that they would like to lay upon the people. They are very invested in people no longer really having ownership of just about anything. They would rather, if you have a car, that you are, leasing or renting a car. They don't want you owning a car. If you are wherever you're living, they would rather you be leasing somewhere or renting. They don't want you owning a house. They don't want you owning land, right? They have visions of what they call linear cities, right? Built along waterways, and railways. Folks, it's deep. These folks really spent years thinking out this. This is what's so sick to me. These people have literally spent out years and years and years formulating, cooking up this dystopian nightmare of an existence that they want you to live in. That's sick. That's sick. That's the sickness of the old paradigm on display. It categorically is. All right, I'm gonna jump back in. Yes. Small V says, as Sean, exactly. We have to be motivated to know better. True indeed. Motivation is plentiful, right? Because there's just about everything at stake. There's just about everything at stake, right? Certainly the well-being, safety, and lives of our children, our families, right? One another. Folks, I just got finished telling you that these people who at one point, I remember lawyers, at least this one lawyer I saw, get on YouTube and make a video where he's telling you the government has the right to have soldiers come in your house and roll up your sleeve and take a needle and stick it in your arm by force with his rifle at your head. I remember, do you all remember that kind of stuff that we went through? Let's let it still be a little fresh in our minds. And that sort of atmosphere should have never been created. And it was created by the very people who rightfully so trust has eroded in. Right? So this is where we're at now, where we need to now look at ourselves and discuss what is right going forward. Not just blindly listen to the folks who just proved that you are expendable to them. And they're going to make money off of it to boot. What? Your lives are expendable to them. You are acceptable casualties. And quite frankly, by the depopulationist movement standards, you are accepted, expected, and needed casualties. They need you to die for their vision to come to fruition. You're talking about some of the wealthiest, most powerful people in the world, and some of the people who are the most public and in your face all the time belong to this movement where while they look in your face all the time, they actually want you to die. Folks, that there's no way to color it any other way. The depopulationist movement, right, literally has called for, via the Georgia Guidestones and in other manifestos, if you do some research, you'll find it. I saw a couple of people dropped out, but come on now, do the free thinking research, come right back and say, wow, King Sadiq was right about that, or he's speaking factually, and jump back in. We'll be waiting on you. Because if you look, They call for world population to be no greater than and maintained at 500 million people in order for world resources to remain at sustainable levels. 500 million people. Okay? Out of close to 8 billion in this population. So tell me that I'm speaking in terms of a conspiracy theorist when this stuff was set in front of your face and etched in the stone for you to read. Is there any more way it can be plainly brought to your attention? This isn't coming from me. Do you understand that they didn't hide this, folks? They made this plainly known to you. I'm just telling you and pointing out the ways that they're executing it or attempting to. So you tell me if you think you should trust them. I'm going to get back in here. This is why the solution is, drum roll please, education. Yes, free thinking, thought-provoking education. Not the education, and I'm not, you're absolutely right, not the education that is force-fed to the masses by those who would like to further indoctrinate and manipulate, right? Folks, even the college experience has transformed so much. There's so much more indoctrination latent in the college experience and throughout, the collegiate experience for young Americans these days. It is totally different back in my college days, right? And certainly before then, when colleges were some of the most free-thinking and revolutionary places in the country. You had all kinds of ideologies being passed back and forth and people having all sorts of perspectives that they shared with one another in free form of thought. Isn't that what it is supposed to be about, right? But now, again, in my opinion, they have largely become operational expressors, transmitters, and in some ways enforcers of predetermined doctrine given them by the same socially, economically who control their boards. That's my opinion. But anyway, not this education, carceral system, true indeed, but critical, political, indigenous knowledge. True indeed, sister. And I knew that's what you meant. True indeed. That's needed, and I think the more, but this is why, in a way, what's happening is beautiful, right? Because as that public trust in the system, right, and the authorities that enforce the system, the powers that be, right, as that trust continues to erode, so do the impacts of the indoctrination systems that supported them, right? As they crumble and fall, the narratives that they used to be able to sell us don't fly anymore. Think about that for a second. The more their power structure crumbles and falls, the more the narratives that they were selling to us that propped them up to such lofty heights in the first place, the more those narratives just simply don't fly anymore, right? How convincing is all the same jargon that you were fed about this being the greatest nation in the world, when we know, those of us who are looking at free thinking media and alternative media sources know that right now there's like a virtual conglomerate of countries that are disassociating themselves from the dollar. But they don't be talking about that every day they cover it like glancingly and then with fact. They cover the facts that are happening glancingly, and then they paint you their own little picture with their own little jargon, their own little, right, propaganda, and they pretty much give you the bait and switch with how they want you to see it, which is to not really look at the issue at all, right? Okay. But yeah, that's true, Marvin. We need to have that, right? We are starving as a public for, I take that back. I don't like the words we're starving for. We're deserving of and demanding, right, leadership that is A, held responsible, and B, actually in a place where they're deserving of trust. Because right now they're not. And they prove that all the time. I don't have to give you a specific instance because at this point, it's quite literally all the time. Right? So, it's completely rational of us to understand that our best interest and the best interest of our families is not at their forethought. You cannot rely on them for open and truth as an open and truthful source of information, especially the more important information that is impactful and it does have influence, consequences, and implications that it's sometimes are worldwide, right? You cannot expect that they're going to do anything that they've other than what they've already shown and told you that they were going to do. That's the astonishing part about all of it to me. They told you and showed you that that's what they were going to do. And then when they do it, in my opinion, it's not about us being surprised. It's about what do we do and what do we accept or not accept, right? Huh? Mavi comes back in and says, knowledge, traditions that acknowledge the metaphysical. Yes, that's the kind of stuff that's been kept hidden from us so much, right? If it wasn't for, and pardon me, folks, I have just a quick technical difficulty. 30 seconds. I'm going to leave you with a different song from my album, and this happens to be relevant. I hope y'all been checking out my music. Please do, right? Please do. But anyway, this song is called The Repeater. And this song talks a lot about what we're discussing today. And I'll be right back. It's the repeater, the real heater, the one that set it off and blow them off the meters. It's the repeater, the real speaker, the one with mad knowledge, million whoppers and tweeters. It's the repeater, the real heater, the one that set it off and blow them off the meters. It's the repeater, the real speaker, the one with mad knowledge, million whoppers and tweeters. It's the the U.S. federal government ain't run by the people you elect in elections. That's just for fun. They just move you through the motions with this Eisenhower spew. Shadow government's a true. President Kennedy knew America as we know it it's not a country at all. It's a corporate monstrosity that is destined to fall. When the real United States suffered its greatest depression, what did those desperate leaders do to stop us? The real question. International banking system, where the Fed come from? Why do international bankers tell our country to run? Who controls our resources and the military's might? They're all just puppets, politicians on the left and the right. Only select few bloodlines controlling the world. Within the future's every father, son, mother, son, girl. It's the repeater, the real heater, the one that set it off, blow them off the meters. It's the repeater, the real speaker, the one with Thank you. Listen. Complex grown way too large. International arms dealers way too in charge. Pharmaceutical industries far too powerful. Explaining them when conversations usually an hour full. Devour full segments of the population quick. Agriculturally spreading famine in the calcified mix. That's it. All institutions now are corrupt. Same for the religions and our education sucks. We stuck, erupt with a call for justice. Vengeance ain't the same thing. We better now, so trust it. Bubble busted them false stereotypes in society. Elites want to murder us all. Race regardless quietly. Try and see exactly what I mean. Be the juggernaut. Race regardless. Inspiration, plug another thought. Now what I got from this process, we can all adopt peace, love, respect. Take it all or not. It's the repeater, the real heater, the one that set it off. All right. So I'm gonna jump back in, y'all. Really, thank you for saying that, Marv, about the metaphysical, because for many of us, that is what has opened the doorway for us even understanding about ourselves, moving into higher consciousness, right? And excuse me, I know myself, I have a lot of, foregoers, certainly. But then there's those who really aided me, like the late, great Dr. Delbert Blair, who, if y'all don't know, he did fairly recently pass away, but not recently, but in recent years, I'll say. But anyway, if y'all didn't know, this man had been building on metaphysics since the early 70s, right? Much of what we're just now uncovering, he was presenting to the world back then, predating people who, like David Icke, which no strike to him, really, because I like a lot of his work, for real. But just know that the OG in that thing is, in my opinion, Dr. Delbert Blair. But yeah, metaphysics has been very important for us to even get to this point where we have this mass awakening, right? So yeah, that's why it was one of the things kept away from us so stringently, and it is, and still is so, right? So much metaphysical knowledge, again, that is tucked away in these storehouses that I absolutely demand we're given access to, right? It's just preposterous to me that there is so many pieces to the puzzle we're missing, that we wouldn't have to keep stumbling through and finding this. And oftentimes we end up getting in these big debates and arguments about information and whatnot, and what school of thought is what better, and what's actually right and what's not right knowledge. And we wouldn't have to go through all of that, through any of that, if what was rightfully being passed down to us had in fact been passed down to us, right? But instead, we've had socially economic elites at the top of these organizations hoarding this information, making things worse, which to me only furthers and or should only further erode public trust in those authorities or powers that be, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at with it. Ma V jumps back in and says, just collecting everything from the global museums would be mind blowing. Indeed, it would. Indeed, it would. Do y'all know that when Nikola Tesla died in his New York hotel room, right? That the government swooped in, big surprise, snatched up all the trunks containing all his information on his experiments and knowledge and things that he uncovered and discovered and patented and all that, and hauled it away, and split it up, right? Some of it essentially the way the trail just breaks off into nothing is so ridiculous that they obviously just sequestered a lot of it, right? And then some of it is broken up into some museums, I believe, over in Europe, right? And guess who was in charge of that whole thing? Who said, there wasn't really anything, all of great importance. Literally. I'm paraphrasing, but he essentially said this in his report. There was nothing of great technological or scientific importance that was groundbreaking found in those trunks. Right. Now, when I say who, guess who I'm talking about, y'all? Trump's uncle. Couldn't make this stuff up. Donald Trump's uncle was in charge of doing that. All right. Anybody else have anything else that they want to say to build on this? This is incredibly important. I feel like it's a step, right? There's certain steps we're going to take on this journey of freeing ourselves from an old paradigm that only bred for us misery, pain, hate, death, destruction, all of the sort of worst characteristics of humanity reside in that old paradigm, scratching and clawing, trying to keep it from going away so that they continue to wage endless wars and waste trillions and trillions of dollars and resources that could be going toward positive solutions for domestic issues and for global issues all around the world. But they'd rather invest that money in killing. And that is savagery, folks. That is not civilization. To be clear, that is barbarism. And there is a time, right? There's a time when we will look back on these days and consider them to be those were the barbaric times. We'll look back on these times the way now we look back on what we call the Dark Ages, right? Literally, that time is rapidly approaching. In fact, where we're going to look back like, man, humanity was really sick at one point, and look how far we've come, right? That's the only path forward, spiritual maturity. Other than that, you're running down a ramp towards self-destruction, especially with all these technological advancements. Remember what I told you. Please, technological advancement and superiority, absent spiritual maturity, equals self-destruction every time. It's just the way it goes. If you're spiritually immature, but you keep getting more and more technically advanced, right? And you continue to have this immature, warlike mentality, eventually you destroy yourselves. Well, the good news, folks, is that we decided we don't want to destroy ourselves. We don't want self-destruction and a huge culling of the planet and all this stuff that these socially economic elites, particularly those who are part of the depopulationist movement, want to see. That dystopian nightmare that they are wanting so badly to actualize, right? We decided to say no. Some people probably said, hell no. Right. True that. And they just got another thing coming. They got another thing coming. People are not the sheeple that they are trusting us to be, right? Sheeple, y'all know that little term that they gloat about how easily it is for them to manipulate the masses. They call the masses of the people of the world sheeple because they can guide you like sheep. That's the way they look at it. We ain't with that. Hell no. We ain't with that. We ain't with that. All right. Brother Sean says, Big King Sadiq, bro, you have a brand, promoted music, books, your narrations, and your podcast. Promote your brand, my brother. Thank you, family. I do need to be about that business. And that is another improvement that will be a part of season 2 going forward, but certainly something that I'm in the midst and in work on now. But thank you so much for that acknowledgement, brother, and that advice. And I appreciate that. And true that. I'm on it. Word life. Because quite honestly, folks, first of all, I am going to be a very wealthy man before this is all said and done. I saw that along with a lot of other things I could share with you in private conversation, if you like, in my visions, where I've had timeless experiences. And it's a good thing that I would come upon wealth now, having gained the level of spiritual maturity that I have, because now I can handle it. And not only handle it, but do good and great things, do powerful things to affect change, and set the example that I'm quite frankly ordained to do. That's what's on me, right? And that I enjoy. You know, hey y'all, I'm having fun being Big King. Ease was a good dude, right? Those of you who knew him, but you know, Big King is entering into mastery, and that wears well on me, right? So, yes, indeed, brother, I'm on that, and I'm moving forward with it. Thank you for the support and the recognition and acknowledgement. Words cannot signify what it means to me. True indeed. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. I love you all, and I appreciate you all tremendously as we surge powerfully forward, cementing in this new paradigm that I like to say exhibits what? Peace, love, respect. We on it, y'all. The worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. True indeed. Anybody got anything else? Normally I do that when I'm about to dip out. And we don't necessarily have to. It's up to y'all. I'm having a good time as always. Anybody else got something else that you want to holler at the people about? What do you want to say to the family? Anybody, I'm going to give it a few ticks for anybody to come with last statements, questions, inferences, whatever comments you want to make. Please jump in and speak to us now. We're waiting on you. Earlier, y'all talked about the 5 ailments I defeated without medication. and I actually can probably expand that list to 6, but chronic gum disease. And I suffered a little bit. Mostly, do y'all know that most of the dental damage I have, listen to this, most of the dental damage I have is a result of following the advice of the same ADA, American Dental Association, and their little dental experts that would have you slapping fluoride all up in your face. They had me on that boosted fluoride, that medicated fluoride. That's how they knew where I was headed. If I'd have kept doing what they were prescribing for me, I'd be sitting here with no teeth right now. They told me, listen to this, that they wanted to extract nearly all of my teeth, and they wanted to do it 9 teeth at a time. Did you hear what I just said? That's where their pathology was having me headed. If I would have did it their way, I would have already had none of my teeth. None of them. Years ago, this is what they had for me. Like they'd have finished their procedure about 5 years ago. They took the last of my teeth that they wanted to take 9 at a time. And never told me the truth that damn super powerful medicated, I can't say the product, right, was killing my gums and making the problem so much worse. And likely, had I not been utilizing fluoride toothpaste, which y'all, if you don't know, do your research. It's a toxin. Yet another reason not to keep coming back around to the subject. Another reason not to trust the powers that be. Right? I'm telling you, do the research. Folks, they give you reason for trust to be eroded. So, let's not be chumps about this. If we see we can't trust them, then we can't trust them, and let's act accordingly. Huh? Isn't that what we should do? Isn't that the advice we give all the time in life? If you see you can't trust somebody over and over and over and over again, and over and over and over again, they prove to us they're not worthy of our trust. So why shouldn't public trust erode? Marv jumps back in. It says, can you speak a bit on your free falls into your path? Or hold on. That just a little heart is in my way. I apologize. Marv. Let's see, can I move this a little bit? Is that Faith Falls? I apologize, sister. I can't see because of this little emoji strip. Faith. Okay, thank you. Yeah, man. I have had, and first of all, folks, for those of you who don't know, I have spoken and identified that, like, what we term as evil, which I now know is actually darkness, which is not the same thing. Darkness is not the same thing as evil. Darkness is the extremely dark, low vibrational field of energy and of the entities that are representative and immersive of it, that are devoid of the light, literally the light, the information of light that comes from the creative source. That's what darkness is. It becomes evil when we apply consciousness to it and give it a face in a form. Now, with that being said, in reality, in my life, I've had darkness or evil on my footsteps coming after me since I was a child, right? From the entities that would attempt to psychologically impact me, like y'all hear about people who do like psychics who have connections with like aliens and multi-dimensional beings and so forth. So like I had low vibrational frequency entities of different dimensional status, right? Or uh, resonance that would essentially assail me psychologically and give me like night terrors and even other things, right? All sorts of sort of things that you would fit into demonology even throughout my life, especially when I was very young, um, until I got to a certain point where I started to come into my own energy and how to utilize that and to combat that psychologically. Which I wonder sometimes, where would I have been? Would I have even been able to um, appropriately adapt socially, like as a child, had I not been able to come out of that? That's how deep it was, right? That it would have likely grown to the point it would have affected my functionality where I might not have been able to even function in public. But it's funny how I did it though. I was always in the martial arts, which my pops had got me into when I was little. And I was a huge Bruce Lee like fan, right? I mean, he was like one of my sort of like, to me, he was like a superhero when I was little, right? And so I think it happened when I watched How Bruce Lee Died, which there was a older version, not what they show y'all now. I'm talking about going back like 40 something years ago, like 43 years ago or something when I was really little. Probably even a couple years before that. But anyway, I watched how he died and how there was like demons essentially coming after him. It was this demon that would come after him in his dreams, but would somehow have physical impact on him, right? And I saw him eventually utilize and appear to at least appear to have overcome this demon, so to speak, using martial arts. Well, that seeded my young mind with that's my superpower. Because I was always and I was studying, like me and my brother was starting to study a little bit of martial arts. You dig, under my uncle, who y'all is actually a real life ninja. Another story. Is the truth though. He literally went to Japan to study and be tested under a ninjutsu master. So that's my aunt. Anyway, uh, what I did was I took that and in my mind I utilized the superpower of martial arts, right, to combat these like demonic figures in my dreams, right? And the demonic clowns and other figures, right? One was like sort of like a hyena kind of a demonic looking thing, and there was a few different ones. Um, and that, was when I probably took the step I really needed to in my life to be able to sort of assimilate. And it was right around that age, because I started school early. at 5, right? But anyway, that's a little bit about what was going on in my mind early on, and then I always felt and experienced in different ways darkness or quote unquote evil nipping at my heels and coming after me, right? And that it took a certain sort of spiritual empowerment that I developed through the years to be able to deal and combat with that. Now, as you grow as a person in this world, so we come into this world certain ways spiritually, which is our true essence, and then you start to develop what is your personality. You become a person. You grow into the person that you are, right? So as I acquired my personality layers, which included all the indoctrination from society and all that, in came some of the ills, right? Particularly how young Black men are indoctrinated into this sort of role that we all got to play. This super macho, super domineering with women. You know, like if you can't get a lot of, I ain't gonna offend none of the ladies. If you don't get a lot of pee, right? And if you ain't a player with the ladies, you's a lame and all that. And if you can't fight, so I had to learn how to have sex with women at a very early age. You dig, and a lot of them, and I had to fuel my need to fight, amongst other things, to feel that I had to be a fighter. And I wasn't a talker a lot. I learned how to, while they talking, go in their mouth while they still running their mouth. But anyway, those of y'all who know my past know about my previous violent history or whatever. But anyway, and so I developed all that kind of stuff that we get indoctrinated into, thinking that we need to be. And that really wasn't my actual true self, right? That was the person I was indoctrinated into becoming. So along with that came a lot of ills that led to a lot of mistakes that I made along those lines, right? And constantly feeding those things that in my psyche told me what a young Black man was, right? Those ill-seated things, not realizing those were inroads, right? For that same darkness or that same low vibrational frequency energy or that same evil to impact me throughout my life, right? And what they were trying to do was sit with, and this is what they do essentially with everybody really throughout your life. And here's the thing, y'all. This is why I told you the difference between darkness and evil. Because in reality, when you gain certain level of spiritual maturity, you realize your higher self sets all this up for you as a task for you to gain the spiritual maturity that you need to gain by working through and fighting against all this stuff. So really, you actually created all this stuff. This is why most of it springs forth and takes its form from what lies in your subconscious, and that you spew out into the quantum field. You spew it out into the quantum field, it reverberates back into reality and serves as a challenge to cause you and force you to grow with spiritual maturity by pitting you against the evils or this is where people say my demons. That's essentially what you're talking about. They are your demons because you created them at a much higher spiritual and dimensional level, but you did create them, right? With the energy that you put through, that you sent through your consciousness into the quantum field to give the low vibrational frequency or dark energy some evil form, right? So, I recognize that now, but of course, going up through life, evil was its own thing, right? And then I latched on the dark stuff and well, at least the fear inroads. Okay, again, they've been setting fears since we're yay big, right? Those fear inroads I fed them with all kind of dark stuff. Like remember the Omen with Damien and all that, like all that demonic, satanic kind of stuff used to really rub me the wrong way. And I didn't like more so than other people. You know what I mean? Like it was fear, and it's probably appropriate that I say it rubbed me the wrong way, like in differently than other people. And that's because it's, you know, that's sort of the face of that energy that was attempting to assail me, right? So throughout my life, it continued to take form, and I continued to do foolishly and spiritually immaturely, but appropriately, because you do the best you can do with what you got to work with along the way. And I did all kinds of, I made mistakes in my relationship, being unfaithful and you know, and to me, that's a mistake. Yes, to the other person, but you're dishonoring yourself more so than anything, because you root all of that in deceit, right? So all that's low vibrational frequency resonance. I even thought back on instances in my life when I was a bully, right? And I ain't gonna put this is a specific person I'm thinking about, but several people in general, and even groups of people. Then I ain't going to take the time to name, but I know what that feels like. I've had so many different experiences. I've had people try to bully me on the cool, but I just earlier in my life that warrior spirit just wasn't. I would fight, and I got in a lot of fights early in life. People who know me know that. Yeah, I was suspended all the time for fighting and the whole nine. Anyway, but the point is, that's how it works on us. And it's supposed to do it like that. And you're supposed to figure it out and work your way through it. Not be saved. None of us need to be saved. I'm sorry, you don't. You're not here for that. You didn't come here for somebody to save you. You spirit didn't incarnate, into a corporeal physical body for somebody to come along and save you. That is not why you're here. You are here to grow. Lifetime after lifetime, you sign up to grow spiritually through this physical experience. Right? Because you experience all sorts of things and vulnerabilities that you simply do not have as a non-corporeal spirit. You just don't, like, you don't get hungry. So you don't got to worry about your next meal and all the things that we attribute to that, folks. You got to worry about a roof over your head and all that old kind of clothes on your back, and feeding your children and all that. You ain't worrying about none of that as a spirit. You don't know what that feels like. Right? I have both been at a point where I could legally cash a weekly paycheck for thousands of dollars. I had been at that point of, not that that's, hey man, there's people that make thousands of dollars a minute. But the point is, I was at a point where I could legally, provide a good lifestyle for my family. And I've also been at the point where, man, I was damn near, if I would have been the type of person who could commit suicide, I would have been at that point over not being able to find work to feed my family the way like I should. I've been at that point. I know those extremes, right? So I say that to say life is experiential, and I've had a tremendous amount of experiences packed into this fitting, right? and it is got me so excited to live the next 50. Notice I didn't say the last 50, just the next 50. You heard me. So thank you for asking about that, Marv, and hopefully me sharing it, you know, ups and downs been no stranger to me any more than the next person, and maybe even and more so than some, and probably certainly not nearly as many as others, right? I don't know what it's like to be carrying, and I don't mean this to be graphic, y'all, but I don't know what it's like to Deanne. Welcome for coming in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know what it's like to be walking, carrying my child's headless body from a bomb that was just dropped on an encampment of innocent people by some countries, you know, and not some country. We already know that Israel did that. I ain't got to stutter step around that. But I don't know what it's like to feel that, right? I don't know what it's like to have a child born with a very, very serious and rare ailment, right? I know a person who, man, I know a few people dealing with that, right? You know, I had a family member whose baby girl had cancer. I mean, come on, man. There's so I say that to say this. We've all been through a lot in one way or another. So to have the mindset that it always could be worse, to me, is a healthy sense of stabling yourself to understand that you don't need to get into the woe is me mentality, but have this incredible experience that is life, this collage of experiences that we call life, and let it be what it's designed to be. A crucible for you to grow and mature spiritually, right? To grow through all your immaturities. You know how they talk about, that's what they're really talking about when they say, when I was a child, you know, I played with childish things, but now as I'm grown, as I'm a man or a woman, right, I put those childish things away. They're not necessarily talking about toys, y'all. They talk about some of that immaturity that you exhibit out there in the world. Huh? In different ways and forms that we all go through and do. But it's part of the maturation process. It's why we signed up for this. Right? But going forward, we're building a new paradigm where, and listen, not only is that individually, that is what humanity collectively has done. And that's where we're actually at right now with this whole mass awakening. We're at this point where, you know, after all these, you know, thousands and in reality millions of years of human existence on this planet, right? And all the experiences that we've had as a collective, right, on this planet, we're at this point now where we're going through having an opportunity to realize and to actualize our purpose collectively for incarnating here on the planet. Right? That's what we're going. We're not going through some, I'm sorry, folks, but you know, we're just not going through some judgment process. This is not the end of, this is not, you know, doomsday and all that kind of stuff. That's not what it's about. It's about the spiritual maturation of humanity or people, whatever term you want to use, right? To get past our collective immaturities, right? Just like how individually you go through your collage of experiences to grow spiritually. So has humanity needed to. And this is where we have the falling off of the old paradigm in favor of the new. That's that maturation process. We've got to mature and go forward into a time where we no longer support perpetual wars, where we don't view it as something even plausible to think of, that we would waste trillions of dollars or tons of money or resources in killing people when we know we could use those resources to save lives. We just don't operate that way anymore because we've gotten to be more mature than that. You understand? That's when we start to really become a spiritually mature civilization, worthy of advancement and the evolution in consciousness that we are actually experiencing. Right? It's literally part of where we're at in the galaxy. It's part of this experience. Right? The test, folks, was whether or not we would have killed ourselves, literally self-destructed, before we made it to this part of the galaxy. But we made it. You might say by the skin of our teeth, but we made it. And now we are awakening and having this ascension process on a mass scale. The socially economic elite and their system that thrived in the old paradigm, right, that would have led us to self-destruction, all of that's falling by the wayside, right? And we are waking up. And yes, a big part of that is erosion of trust in centralized power structures. Yes, that's part of it. Because we're taking our power back. Power to the people. That concept comes back around full circle. Power to the people. That's part of our evolution. Do you think we would really evolve and remain slaves to a dystopian nightmare of an existence under the socially economic elite? No. No. That's why, just like Mavi said earlier, they wanted to keep the metaphysics away from us. That's why they continue to try to flood us with distraction left and right to keep us from looking in that direction of our own self-evolution and the collective evolution that's going on the planet. That's why they're panicking and trying to have wars all around the world, right? To veer back into the old paradigm instead of the new that we're already cementing ourselves into. It's really, on a certain level, it's kind of pathetic. They're a little bit like fish that been caught and they in the bucket in the boat and they flopping around. They got that little teeny bit of water, but they ain't fitting to last too long. And they fluttering and flat. That's what they doing, y'all. They fluttering. They're literally that weak at this point, but they're keeping up the appearances and the images of strength. And, this is still our paradigm. We're still, no. We ain't with that. Hey, perfect example. Not the prettiest smile in the world, but left up to you socially economic elites, I wouldn't be able to smile at all. Huh? Left up to you socially economic elite, I wouldn't even be here. Right? Isn't that what you kept trying to flood at me? Your father died at 43, tragically, which that wasn't natural. But anyway, I won't go off into that story too much. But then they keep trying to throw that at me. Boy, 43, they wanted me to be gone so bad. Y'all, they wanted me out of here. They wanted the big king up and out of here at 43. And here I am at 50, laughing in magnificent shape. I can get up right now and run down 3 streets I can go and walk. I just not that long ago walked from downtown to Verona. Walked. I'm in magnificent shape. Huh? I'm back in the gym. I'm getting my strength back. Before you know it, I'm going to be pushing that 400 stack again and beyond. Huh? Folks, I'm trying to just say this to let you know they are failing far more greatly than what it appears to be and what you're shown on a daily basis by legacy mainstream media. Don't trust them. Don't let them fool you. Oh, no. Don't do it. And with PE said, don't trust it. Don't trust it. Don't even do it. Don't believe it. Don't believe that. Don't believe the hype. I didn't mean to take your stuff, Flav. But really, folks, we're right to be at a point where public trust has eroded. And we've evolved to where we're not only reaching in a higher consciousness individually, but collectively. As a collective, this is real. It's happening, right? I always say, just if you, the next time you go to your medical professional's office, your dental office, instead of picking up, you dig the fashion magazine or the sports magazine, pick up the science magazine. Scientists have been talking about all these energies bombarding the planet and the strange behavior of the sun and all these things and things that they're finding out about our dimensional existence. They already acknowledge and know that there's at least 12 dimensions. We'll still continue to realize, oh my goodness, there's far more dimensions than we can even count. But they'll get there. I'm waiting on them. And this is what's going on. The things that were hidden from us are now rapidly coming. And I must say, I'm not tooting my horn, but I told you in 2024, this was going to be a big year for that. And it's happening. Look at how much has come out already that quickly about what they imposed on us during the pandemic. Folks, let them tell it. They would have got away them lies for another couple of decades. Cats like Fauci might not would even be living. But no, it ain't happened like that. It ain't happened the way they wanted it to. Already we finding out the lies and the profiteering and all the things that they did in alignment with the socially economic elites movement known as the depopulationist movement, the different ways that they followed along with their agenda. We're finding out about the UN Agenda 2023 in June, UN Agenda 2030. We're finding out about that stuff. We done found out about Muammar Gaddafi's speech at the UN that many would say likely is what got him killed, but which should have been heralded as one of the greatest speeches ever given on that floor. Huh? By one of the greatest leaders that the world has seen. Ask his people what he did for them. Ask Africa what he did for them, and with the rest of Africa, what he was trying to set up independently, right? How he was getting ready to change economics in Africa for everybody in favor of the people. Come on now. Thank you, Brother Sean, for the peace, love, respect, family. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Listen, y'all. This is we've done this. We made our choice, right? Just by surviving, we made a choice to evolve. And that's just what's happening. Huh? That's what's happening. So, yeah, you're going to see the drama, right? And unfortunately, because you're dealing with the socioeconomic elite who have quote unquote power and resources, right? There are casualties to it too because they fight dirty, right? But first of all, to people like me, death is a paper tiger. I don't fear death anymore, not for myself or any of my loved ones, because I now understand what the human experience is about. Well, part of that is partially from having a NDE of my own, but the other part is all the things that I've learned about exactly what is and what this experience is all about, right? No, folks, somebody dies and checks out of this experience, it's a come up. I mean, facts. It's a come up. They're straight. Forget all that heaven and hell stuff. That ain't even going down. When somebody checks up out of here, they're good. They're Gucci, so to speak. They ain't hurting. They all right. What they actually are doing is viewing us because they're at a higher dimensional platform when they're spirits, right? And they're viewing what's going on with us right here as we continue the human experience, as we continue doing all this corporeally. Thank you, Marv, for the peace, love, respect, the PLR, right? So, again, folks, I say all that to say that their power structures, their centralized power structures and control systems are failing and will continue to do so and will ultimately be replaced by what is reflective of our will, right? And what is in the best interest of the masses. And we get to actually implement what's best for us and our families moving forward. That is the change that's happening. And it is inevitable is not a strong enough word. I'm trying to think of something better. All right. Inevitable is good enough, I guess. No need for vocabulary flexing. It is something that is already happening and not going to be stopped. Not saying they're not going to try. We see that. We see what desperate lengths they'll go to, but they will fail and continue to fail. This is humanity manifesting its own spiritual maturity out of its own dysfunction. Power back to the people as we choose to move forward in our new paradigm, when it exhibits peace, love, respect. This is what's happening. It is our collective spiritual maturation. As with all major growth, there are growing pains. But growth, nonetheless, is occurring. And growth is change, right? When you grow, you don't stay the same, you change. Growth is change. And those who are invested in the old paradigm don't like change because that means the power and control and manipulation that they've enjoyed goes away as things change. but things are changing and will continue to. And in my opinion, the public is right for its trust to erode and continue to. Just as we will be right in establishing the appropriate action, the appropriate peaceful action. You know, I don't cite violence. That's not going to work anyway. It's not about violence. It's about assertion of a higher consciousness in the way we live, and not, first of all, no longer assigning our consent and giving that over to anyone else offering any form of agency or you know, governance, right? Again, conceptually, the government should work for the people, point blank, not the other way around. The government should not be your boss. Think about that. All right? What's the NFL commissioner's name? I don't have to say his name, but like the NFL commissioner ain't the boss of the owners. The owners are his boss. Now, because they give him certain powers that they've deemed to him collectively, he can do in certain things. He can even, you know, sort of give little slaps in the wrist on certain owners for certain things or violations or whatever, because that's what they all collectively agreed on. But he himself is just an employee of the owners. Folks, the government is the same way. The government is our employee. You show writing the check for it, huh? You know how they waste your money. I think it's time for us to take charge, right? Again, I don't say that in any negative way. We don't need to do anything negative, or we should not do anything negative, violent, or low vibrational frequency in any way. What we should do is take step number one and stop giving over our power and our consent. Let's move forward from there, right? Anybody else, anything else? I'll give it just a couple more ticks. Just a couple of more ticks. Tick, 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 tock, tock. Yeah. See what I did with that? All right. Anybody else got anything else relevant to today's subject? Again, today's subject, the erosion of public trust in the quote unquote authorities / the quote unquote powers that be. Right? And often we're talking about centralized government and the system that controls, like media, for example. Anybody else? Anything else? Going once, going twice, in a hurt, in a... No, don't get me started. We used to stand around in a circle in the 80s, beatboxing and freestyling. True to my culture, seeing? All right. And that's it. I did all that and did a Jamaican movie. I am not Jamaican. Although somewhere along the line, I feel that in my lineage. But I am not in any way Jamaican. But there was a time when reggae and dancehall did have extreme ties in the hip hop, and I'm hip hop all day long. All right, connecting the dots with Deanne. Deanne says, stay safe and have a wonderful night. Thank you, Deanne. Do the same. And thank you so much for being with us. Thank you all for being with us. Marv V and Sean, special salutes. And shout out to you for really going back and forth with me so much, providing the content and the subject of this conversation. I appreciate it, but I appreciate all of you where you chimed in and just for being here with me. I love you all. Thank you. Truly, I mean that. And please be with me again next week. Mavi, where we at with earlier? I think she said she put it in there. The subject matter for next week's podcast. What I will do is talk to Marv, and I will coordinate that with her and put it in like a little announcement on the channel. I think I can make an sort of like a little announcement about the upcoming podcast anyway. So I might as well try and do that. All right. Okay. Otherwise, whoever's here is still here. I see people didn't bailed out. I love you all. Worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq. I'm out.